All right, welcome back. IJ Subito. Inter beat Bayern 2-1 in Munich. The job halfway done. Bayern's first home loss in the Champions League in 22 matches, 4 years. 4 years ago, Irfan didn't have as many kids. Irfan, what's happening, man?
Um, just put some of those kids to bed, so life is good right now. This is that time period where I get to be myself and enjoy, as long as I'm not working. So no better time, no better way to spend this time than with you fine gentlemen celebrating a win. And just to address the elephant in the room, there was one podcast member who did mention that there'd be a 2-1 scoreline with an Inter win. So I would like to just congratulate myself on getting it right. And I would also like to congratulate you guys for being in my presence and learning from me.
I want to start by saying thank you, Irfan. Thank you for proving that this team is better without Aslani than with Aslani.
You never said thank you until now. Maybe you should just say thank you. Oh, you just did. Okay, thank you.
As reciprocation, I'm going to impose a tariff on Sterling. Sterling, welcome back to the pod. Your debut on IJ Subito. Happy to have you on.
Oh man, I'm happy to be here, especially after an Inter victory that only Irfan called. Let the record show. There's only one person on this podcast who predicted an Inter victory, and it was Irfan. So we do have to give him credit for that. For a while, they were looking like my 1-1 was going to be correct, but fortunately, it was incorrect because now we get to bring a one goal advantage into the home leg, which is obviously fantastic.
We can all take solace in knowing we're a lot closer than Jay's 7-0 prediction for Bayern. So, if nothing else, better than him. So, as you've probably gathered, you're stuck with the American contingent here tonight. We want to rap about this Bayern match, and such a great game to watch. Playing in these high stakes Champions League games, you don't realize it's missing from your life until you finally get back to this point. And to have Inter steadily in this competition the last 4 or 5 years, advancing to the knockout stage, just how great is this? And we just won one of the five hardest matches in European football. To go away to Bayern, like, that's an impossible situation. And it doesn't matter how you get the job done, but to get out of there with a win, honestly, getting out of there with any kind of result would have been impressive. But to get out with a win and to look pretty good doing it, I mean, just what an impressive performance. And we've been begging this team to kind of step up all season to respond to some adversity and to show some championship mettle. And just wow, like, to come out and company is talking in the media about how Bayern dominated the first 30 minutes of the match. And it's a valid point, right? Like, Bayern looked really dangerous in the first portion of this match. But guess what? We responded. We weathered the storm. We scored a fantastic goal in the first half to go up. And I don't know about you guys, but I was calm during that second half. Like, we were resolute defensively. And if you talk about dangerous chances we gave up during this match, I mean, the Harry Kane post, obviously the big miss. But was there any points in the second half where you guys felt under siege? Like, I felt comfortable for pretty much the entire second half. Company makes the triple change to put Muller on. It does change the complexion of the match, but heck, we were able to bounce back so quickly from their goal that you didn't even have time to think about it. We felt in control. We can get into the finer details of the match, but just incredible performance. And I'm just honestly stunned that this team had this in them. I really didn't think they were capable of stepping up to this level and playing this well in just a really tough away fixture. Sterling, what do you think of the match? How are you reacting to what is just a fantastic result for Inter?
Yeah, I don't think that we can discount just how important this was for the team mentally. We haven't really won in a big knockout match, and obviously, when I say one, I mean even an individual leg, certainly an away leg against a big team in quite some time. I know people are going to say, well, what about Atletico Madrid last year? I mean, that was the home leg. We did batter them in that match, but then we subsequently, obviously. went out in the second leg. I do think we have a much better advantage this time, having won the away leg. And I think that we mentally really needed that to go on the road to a traditional big team and get that W. But obviously, it only matters if we can see it through. If we go and we lose at home to Bayern and somehow get knocked out, then obviously none of this is going to matter. But I think that we've taken a huge step towards doing that, and putting ourselves in the best position possible. And I think that the team deserves a tremendous amount of credit for doing that because, as you mentioned, going to Bayern, and I know people are going to say, "Oh, well, this Bayern had injuries." So what? I mean, we had injuries as well. And I'll tell you what, this Bayern team was still pretty good. That front line was still pretty good. I know they had to play essentially a left back as an attacking midfielder, but man, I mean, they still were very dangerous. That front three, I think, is still a top class front three. I am glad that we did not have to deal with Musiala today because having him there, could have been a difference maker, no doubt about that. But as crazy as it sounds, I mean, I think even Dumfries maybe have been a difference maker for us, or certainly DeMarco on his day can be a difference maker. Although I must say, Carlos Augusto, man of the match, 2 assists. I mean, or I shouldn't say it wasn't an assist on the first one. Actually, it was Thuram who ended up making the assist, but heavily involved in both goals. Had a fantastic match, really defensively and on the attacking side of things. So, DeMarco was not missed as much as he probably would be in most matches. But, you know, when you get down to the end of the year, you got to play with what you got. And, Inter and Bayern are two teams that are blessed to play a lot of games because they're really good teams. And so they go deep in competitions. And as we've seen this year, they probably added a few games too many to the schedule, and teams are breaking down. And so, yeah, they had injuries. We had injuries. It doesn't matter. You show up and you play on the day. And on the day, Inter won. And I would say that we were deserved winners. Certainly not a match that we deserved to lose. I mean, you could argue maybe a draw could have been a fair result as well. I don't think anybody would have complained about that. But, we scored two very legitimate goals and we had chances throughout the match as well. After being under siege a little bit for the first 20, 25 minutes or so, Inter really grew into this game. And that's what you have to be able to do on the road when you're playing these big matches. And that's what we weren't able to do against Atletico Madrid. We got rocked against Atletico and we were never able to steady the ship. And today, when we got rocked a little bit and we were able to rebound and kind of continue to build from there. And listen, Harry Kane did let us off the hook a little bit, but still, I think you got to give a lot of credit to the boys for their attitude today and just the way that they approached the match. We really looked like a mature team out there. And listen, again, it only matters if we can see it through. But I think that this does give me a little bit more confidence about the team's mentality moving forward.
Yeah, I really don't want to hear it from anyone about the Bayern injuries because at the end of the day, like their decision to start Guerrero, who is basically a left back, as their, playmaker behind Kane, that was their choice. They had Muller on the bench. That was a tactical decision they made. The fact they had to sub off Kim was their fault. He picked up a booking on a poor tackle in the first half, and they made the decision to take him off, and that's what led to Bowie coming on and ultimately leading to us scoring our second goal. So hey, these were tactical decisions they made, and sure, they were beat up, but Olise and Sane are both extremely talented wingers. Kane is supposed to be one of the best strikers in the world. We did what we had to do with the players we had to work with. Irfan, Sterling mentioned Augusto, man of the match type performance. You won't hear any complaints from me there, but just curious if there's anyone you want to call out for having a great game today.
Yeah, honestly, I think Bastoni, he won the man of the match. But I agree. I mean, I thought Bastoni was good, but I thought Augusto was excellent, especially when you consider what he had to deal with, the responsibilities that he had on the pitch. And also, I thought that, it's really funny. because two of the players that I've probably been the hardest on this pod through the season, and frankly deservedly so, have been Lautaro and Frattesi. And not only were both of them the goal scorers today, but I thought Lautaro had one of his best games that I've seen in a long time, because of all of the work that he was putting in outside of scoring that goal. First of all, the goal he scored was amazing. Great finish, and took it with confidence and really gave the goalie no shot. It was a great setup by Thuram as well. So props to Lautaro for actually knocking one of those in. Too often, I think we've seen him sky that or hit it right at the goalie, but that was just like perfect execution. But he was all over the place. Like, he was, again, helping out so much defensively. There was numerous times that he was the one almost all the way back into our box, dispossessing, Bayern from establishing an attack. So lots of credit for what he did on the pitch. Augusto was amazing. And for Frattesi, look, I think I even said it in the last pod, which was that he just, for some reason, he just can't click. And if there's anybody who should be coming off the bench to be our kind of wild card to score a late goal when we need a goal, it should be him. And today he kind of proved that. I mean, the announcers were saying that most of his goals are scored in very similar manner, and it's true, they are. But the ability to like find himself making those late runs into the box and getting into a good position to get on the end of something is an admirable and valuable quality. And to do that in a match like this, when we had just gone down, when we just ended up dropping our lead and getting a draw, kudos to him, and he deserves it, especially all the stuff that he's been going through personally. He made a comment about how it really affected him, how he lost his grandma before the match. So, heart goes out to him. He did a great job. Lautaro did a great job. I'll echo what you said, Andrew, that I was actually really surprised at how good Bayern were to start this match. They were I was, given their injuries, I was expecting kind of like a different sort of team, and they were all over the place. They were pressing us quite a bit, and they were energetic. They were everywhere on the pitch, and you can tell they had home court advantage, and they were a confident team. And I really think that this match, more than anything for Inter, was a gut check sort of match, right? Like, these are the kinds of matches that show what you're made of. And even if we would have ended up with a draw, or if we wouldn't have gotten the result, I thought the performance team was really good. They played hard. They did not get rattled. I think the announcers analyzed this after the match, that leading up to our first goal, we tried to push the ball forward and then pushed it back and then retained possession and then cycled the ball and then went back to the goalie and then tried again and then went back again. And we held the ball for almost 2.5 minutes before we ended up, launching the attack that scored the goal, which actually came off of a kick directly from Sommer. So it just goes to show you that the gut check was there. The team did not get rattled with Bayern, with the moment. They played their game, and I was so happy that they actually played their game. And this felt a lot to me like a boxing match, right? Where in the beginning, there's a lot of punches being kind of thrown, and you dodge one. We got very lucky with Kane hitting the post on that. It could have changed the entire nature of the game, but we kind of dodged one, and then we saw an opportunity, and man, did we strike! And we sucker punched them really hard with that buildup. It was so direct, which was hilarious after 2.5 minutes of buildup. And so, props to the team. They did such a good job. This was a great performance overall, and obviously, given the nature of where we are and where we were playing and the competition, it's a huge, huge win for us. So props to the team.
The build up for that goal, I think it'll go unnoticed, but it was something that I certainly noticed. And I mean, as you mentioned, we held the ball, 2.5 minutes, whatever it was. And I mean, so much happened during that build up. It seemed like we were in their half and kind of a half court offense. Then, we would recycle possession, then we'd be backed by our goal, building out of the back on our own, do our own choices basically, to recycle possession and go that deep all the way back to Sommer. Then we would go up again, then we would come back again. It was very calculated and very prodding and extremely patient. And then, like you said, yeah, it's actually a route one ball from Sommer that kind of starts that pull move that eventually leads to the goal. But I mean, I think we got to just talk about that goal and how beautiful it actually was. At some point, somebody who has a lot of time will actually put together the full build up with, all 100 something passes, I'm sure, that were in that 2.5 minutes before the goal came. But even just the move itself that eventually led to the goal, it comes obviously from the long ball. Um, Lautaro contests for it. He doesn't actually win that ball. I think uh, was it Kim Min Jae? I think actually is the one who ends up hitting the ball. But obviously, then Thuram's able to bring it under control, play it into Lautaro. Lautaro plays a ball outside to Bastoni. And then Bastoni is able to beat Elise to the what's like basically a 50-50 ball, and then put Augusto in a position for a one-time cross. But the true brilliance of this goal really starts from Marcus Thuram and that touch. I mean, that is class. That is having a cool head. That's understanding the moment. That's understanding your team. That's something that only comes from a lot of work on the training ground and also in game with having the same strike partner game after game after game. Just knowing that Lautaro is going to be there lurking, and then the finish from Lautaro is honestly, if it's not equal, it's better. Um, to the touch from Thuram. I mean, that Trivela finish into the top corner, that takes a lot of composure as well. I know that sometimes we kind of call him, El Toro. He basically just sees red and he just smashes the ball oftentimes without giving it too much thought. That was the opposite of that. I think that shows that he is a confident player and he has matured over time. He took that chance. And I know Jay said, hey, I don't think that if Lautaro gets a chance in the Allianz Arena that he's going to take it. Well, he took it, and he took it extremely well. So I think we have to give a lot of credit to that goal because I think it really changed the game. And as you mentioned, Irfan, with it being a gut check, I think that was the gut check for Bayern to let them know, hey, like this is a real team. This is a real Inter team that you're going to have to deal with. We just possessed the ball for 2 minutes and scored afterwards. So that's the biggest takeaway I think from this match is that we really can play toe to toe with anybody. 'Cause, I mean, we showed it earlier this year with Man City away, where we had great spells there as well, but we never really scored. This was a different game. 2 goals away at Bayern. That's a huge step forward for this team.
It is a little ironic that after that steady buildup of possession, I think it was Kim on Bayern who won the header, but it just so happened to come down into, I think it was maybe Barella's path and ultimately led to us getting that goal. But yeah, you have to talk about Lautaro's finish, and anyone who has ever tried kicking a ball before knows how outrageous the technique was on that shot to get the placement he did in the top corner using the outside of the boots. And you touched on it, Sterling. I mean, this guy, we know what he is in front of net, which is he sometimes just kind of lashes out at the ball. It goes right to the keeper. He doesn't take any time to use any technique. And as a result, he has some poor finishes. This wasn't that. This was a thing of beauty. This was a piece of art. And it's impossible to have a nicer finish than he put together. So it was just an excellent team goal. And it really changed the tide of the match. Obviously, goals change matches. But if you think about it, like, Bayern had their good 25 minutes to open the game, and we slowly grew into it. But as soon as we got that goal, like, everything about our performance improved. The defending was better. There were less chances coming from Bayern. It allowed us to settle into the match, took some pressure off the shoulders, and as a result, just let us play our best game. Now, we've talked a lot about how in the past, Inter haven't been able to get these big skins in the Champions League. It's kind of been unattainable to us, and I don't want to act like the job is done because we still have a lot of work to do next week when we go home to Giuseppe Meazza and need to take care of business. But we still did win an away fixture against Bayern. So I want to pose the question to you both. If you take a moment to reflect and you think about this, fill in the blank for me. This is Inter's biggest win since blank. What do you think, Irfan?
I don't know. It's hard for me to say because I'll tell you exactly what my thought process is, right? So I think it's pretty clearly it's our biggest win since the Champions League semifinal against Milan a couple of years ago. But I don't really respect Milan enough to think that that was a huge win or like a surprising win. Like I felt confident going into those two matches that we were probably going to come up with a result in advance. And, I know it sounds arrogant to say that now in hindsight, but it was a huge win. I was super happy, like from an emotional standpoint, but it didn't seem to me as fulfilling of a win as this one did. Especially, and I'll put this, like Sterling mentioned it a few times, I'll put this in like that little asterisk, which is that this win doesn't really mean anything unless we can actually advance, even if it's through a draw at the San Siro. But I think this is Inter's biggest win since, honestly, I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, I keep going back to that Milan match, and then I try to think back before then, whether it's in the league or somewhere in Europe. And, had we beaten Sevilla, yeah.
Yeah, I had a chance to give some thought to this, and initially I said, well, this is probably our biggest win since we beat Bayern last, which was in 2011. It's the last time that we basically claimed a big scalp in a European competition. But I don't want to get ahead of myself because, listen, even though this was a quote unquote weakened Bayern team, they did cause a lot of trouble today. And so this is not over. And they could knock us out in the second leg. That very well still could happen. So I don't know that I necessarily want um, to say that just yet, because that last win that we had in the Allianz Arena was in a second leg, and we ended up going through. And I believe that was a quarterfinal as well, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it was around a 16. But either way, I mean, we really haven't knocked a big team out of Europe since then, and we still haven't. So I probably wouldn't go that far, but I would say the last win that made me feel like this was probably when we beat Juventus in the Conti season. So the second Conti season, we were in lockdown, and Barella gets that ball over the top into space, and he rifles it into the top corner, and you just kind of felt like you slayed a demon a little bit. It felt like you finally killed the monster in a scary movie. And again, I want to preface that we haven't killed Bayern, but that's the last time where an individual game made me feel like, hey, this team has taken a step forward in maturity. Like we can do this, guys. Like we can beat a big team. It really can happen. So I would say that that's probably the last most recent match in my memory that made me feel like this match did today.
The Conte win over Juve in the second season is such a great call because in my mind, that's the match where this team became champions for the first time. That was the opening of this cycle when we've had. I'm hoping at the end of the season we'll be able to say we've had an incredible 5-year spell here under Inzaghi and Conte, where we've gone and won multiple trophies, because it just felt like the opening of the window. We had been so poor for so long, and like you said, to have Conte gonna beat the monster he created in Juve and their 9-year spell of dominance over the league, it really just established that players like Barella and Bastoni could be champions, or even a Handanovic could be a champion for the first time. So yeah, the Conte win over Juve back in 2021, that's a great shout. Irfan, to your point, the problem with picking the Milan game is we had such high confidence we were going to beat Milan. We had already beaten them, I want to say 2 or 3 times that season. Expectations were high, and honestly, at that point in the Champions League, we had felt fortunate to have the path we had had. We had a couple Portuguese team. We had a relatively weak Milan side, and going into the final against City, no one felt confident. But if we go out next week and in Milano we knock out Bayern Munich, every Inter fan on this planet is going to think we're capable of winning the Champions League, and that's why this match is so much bigger than the Milan semifinal or really any Champions League match we've had back since 2011, like Sterling referenced. It's just, this competition has not been kind to us in the past 10, 15 years or so. And I hope we can finish the job here, because this would by far be our biggest accomplishment in the competition in quite some time.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I think it's unfair ultimately to compare this to the treble winning team. And obviously winning the final against Bayern is, one for the history books. This one also feels like a little bit more like the result that we got against Barcelona also. Like that, to me, as good as the Champions League win in the final was against Bayern, which obviously it was because you have to deliver in the final scene. That 2-leg match against Barcelona that basically got us there is what stands out to me, to this day. And, this Champions League run, assuming we're able to hold on in the second leg, and then most likely having to play, Barcelona next, unless, Dortmund can beat them, it's shaping up like that sort of a season. So there's a lot of excitement. Like, I'm very excited to see, assuming we can dispatch Bayern, like what happens in the next round. And this is like, you were saying that sometimes you don't realize how much you miss the Champions League until it starts up again. And, sometimes you don't realize how much you miss having a team that is going deep into the Champions League until it actually happens. And like seeing your team and seeing your guys out there is so exciting as a fan. And it really is kind of like what everything is all about. And I wonder if sometimes, like, if you're like a Real Madrid fan, or honestly, they're probably the only team. If you're like a Real Madrid fan, do you ever get tired of it where you're like, man, my team's going to be in the quarters or the semis? Well, maybe not this year, but they'll be in the quarters or the semis basically every time in the Champions League. But for us, because it's so rare, something like this it's special.
There's no better feeling than beating another big team in the Champions League. There's just no better feeling in the sport, in my opinion, in an individual one-off match, at least. I mean, yeah, winning a Scudetto and trophies are their own thing, and when it comes to an individual match, I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, but I get way more hyped about beating another big team that has a much larger fan base than ours, that many of the casuals would say should trounce us. When we get to beat a team like that, to me it's even more exciting than beating like a Milan or a Juve, because those are like cousins basically. You play them every year no matter what. They're going to win some, we're going to win some, but you only get to play Bayern Munich in a Champions League tie every once in a while. You only get to play, Real Madrid or Atletico or any of these big teams that are, it seems like it's every year for them, like you said, Irfan, but for us, it seems like a much rarer occurrence. And hopefully that's not the case moving forward. Hopefully, um, we can open our own Champions League cycle where we're also a threat and we continuously go deep and challenge, as we have in recent years. I mean, let's not forget we were in a final a couple years ago. So, maybe we are that team now, but to me, that's the pinnacle of the sport. That's the absolute highest level, is Champions League, and so that's what gets the casuals watching. And there's just something fun about knowing that there's a bunch of eyes watching, quote unquote, your team that don't usually watch your team play. And you're getting to see Inzaghi's style and the fact that it can actually work at the absolute highest level, way at the Allianz Arena, where you have Bastoni um, in the center forward position randomly during open play in the build-up. I mean, that's just something that no other coach would have the balls to do, and we do it, and we do it extremely well, and it works. That's what matters the most, is that it actually works. One more thing, I think we have speak on before we finish today is Barella. No one mentioned Barella thus far, and he was another player who very easily could have been in for a man of the match performance as well. I mean, when he is on, man, he is just a joy to watch. So many little deft touches today, so many back heel flicks that came off. He's involved. Really, he put Lautaro through on goal earlier in the first half as well, and Lautaro slipped. And at that moment, everyone's thinking, "Oh man, Jay's right." But excuse me, Barella. I mean, just a awesome performance, and it's what you want to see from him because a lot of people are saying, "Oh, he's one of the best in the world in his position." He's in that class. And we as Inter fans, yeah, we probably do feel that way, but you really want to see it confirmed on nights like tonight. And I thought that he was just awesome. Just his overall control of the match, I thought was really cool to watch. And then obviously he's involved as well in the build up for the winner. He plays a little deft ball around the corner to Augusto, which really that's what sets the whole playoff. I mean, that's when we jailbreak and we get loose. So. I think that you have to give a lot of credit to Barella tonight as another great performer.
I just want to circle back to your previous point, Sterling, and about the privilege of playing in the Champions League. And it's great being the Italian flag bearer in this competition. We have been the only Italian side really worthy of this competition the past few years. Only one who's been able to make reasonable progress in the competition. Obviously, we had a good showing against City in the final a couple of years ago to dispatch Milan along the way. And it is frustrating living in America. And look, if you're in America right now, the only thing they're talking about on Paramount Plus or CBS is Arsenal romping Real Madrid. They don't care about us. And even listening to the commentators in the match, like Martin Tyler doesn't know anything about our players. He resorts to talking about cliches. He's going on and he's making vague references to Catenaccio. He doesn't know our players. He doesn't have the level of insight he does on the Bayern players, and it shines through in the commentary when he's like breaking down Kane's game or whatever. And for that reason, it's just impossible that we keep putting ourselves out there. We keep advancing in this competition, and I just want us to build that brand. I want people to know who we are. Like Inzaghi is not some defensive manager. Like you said, Bastoni's roaming forward, being involved in the attack. He was the one who had a key dribble on the first goal to actually set Augusto free on the left wing. And it's just great for us to get more exposure for our players. And yeah, you completely nailed it. Barella was man of the match, according to a lot of media outlets. Gazzetta actually had him as the man of the match. And his ability to just gain control of the ball and quickly make decisions is among the best in the world. It's really where he excels, and he's the motor that drives this team. On reference to the frustration I have dealing with Arsenal's win today over Madrid, I do have a listener question from Jay in Sydney who wants us to address. We can hit this quickly. Are Arsenal now the favorites for the Champions League? And are you frustrated that they stole the limelight away from Inter tonight?
They're definitely not the favorites for the Champions League. Jay in Sydney, thank you for your question. I'm sure you're a longtime listener. But no, they're definitely not the favorite for the Champions League. Good performance by them today, no doubt. The two free kick goals were about as good free kicks as I've probably ever seen. So massive props to them. But come on, this is a Real Madrid team that has not been that great all season. They were also facing a decent amount of injuries. Props to Arsenal for actually following through because they've been pretty big choke artists in the Champions League for a long time. But no, they're definitely not the favorite. And in terms of like them taking some of the attention away from us, like you were saying, Andrew, like that was bound to happen. That could have been a 0-0 match between Arsenal and Real Madrid, and all Paramount Plus and US media would have been talking about was going to be Arsenal. In fact, I think we probably got a little bit extra attention because Harry Kane plays for Bayern, because absent Harry Kane playing for Bayern, I'm sure like we wouldn't have even gotten a look at this match, in the general media. So the fake news media can talk about Arsenal all they want, but Inter deserves the spotlight today.
Thierry Henry was literally in tears post game, calling this the biggest win in Arsenal's club history.
But you guys forget, I mean, Arsenal has really been as poor as Inter in the Champions League or in Europe, really, for almost equally as long. I think their last quarterfinal appearance was 14 years ago. So that's 2011. That's when we last knocked out Bayern. So, I mean, it's been a long time in the desert for them as well. And I agree, Arsenal's not the favorite to win it. However, I think they could. I really do think they have the ability to win it. I think they're just a very stubborn team to beat in a one-on-one match, and they have a ton of athleticism. And so I think on any given day, they can show up and give somebody a game, and I do think that they have the quality to be able to potentially win it. My question with Arsenal is always how well do they travel? Now they're going to have to go to the Bernabeu, but they have a 3-goal lead. I don't think that even Arsenal could give that up, honestly. I know Real Madrid has that Champions League voodoo, and stranger things have happened, no doubt about that. And I do think that Real Madrid will score, but I think that for them to give up 3 or more, really 3 or more on the road, I think would be difficult because they are actually a really good defensive team as well. So I do think that they could potentially win it. I certainly think they can make it to a final. It's looking like they probably, I think they got PSG or Aston Villa potentially in the semis. If it's Aston Villa, I think that they'll roll them. I really do. If it's PSG, I think that's more of a 50-50 battle there. And I might even give the slight edge to PSG just given the form that they've been in and what they did to Liverpool. But I mean, I would not be surprised if whoever wins the Champions League ends up having to go through Arsenal to do so.
I'll go ahead and say PSG are the favorites, but go ahead, Irfan.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. But you know what? I was also going to say, you mentioned PSG. I'm going to go ahead and go on record now and say that if somehow Aston Villa end up in the Champions League final or winning the Champions League, I'll quit football forever, because you will never hear the end of it from the EPL fans ever in your whole life. If someone like Aston Villa ends up in the final and somehow wins. I know, right?
Can you imagine? Winning would upset me more.
I don't even want them to make it to a semifinal. I don't even want to hear that. Like, I just want Aston Villa to be out of this competition.
We can't risk it. We can't risk it. Yeah, I agree. We cannot risk it, man. Can you imagine, like, Aston Villa versus Barcelona or Aston Villa versus Inter in the final, and then boom, they win? I would just, there'd be no coming back.
Oh, man.
So,
that's a good spot to leave it. Well, sorry, Sterling, did you want to say something before we wrap up?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I guess any predictions on who will come through the other side of the draw between Barcelona and Dortmund?
Barcelona have looked excellent this year. I will say that there is no team in world football I hate more outside of Italy than Barcelona. There are only 2 days a year I root for Real Madrid, and those are whenever El Clasico falls. I still hate them from 2010. I honestly hate everything about Barcelona. So I would be thrilled to see another German club, but I think it's going to be Barcelona.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Andrew. Like, I feel the same exact way about Barcelona, and probably for the same exact reasons. Also because, like, they've always like aired themselves out to be like, some football club that is somehow in like a different dimension of like beauty and playing style and all this sort of stuff, regardless of who the manager was, even if it was like Pep, before Pep or after Pep. Like, that arrogance of like, this is how you're supposed to play. Like, it's just, I cannot stand it. So I would love it. But yeah, I think they've been pretty good, and I don't see them really dropping to Dortmund. So if we can dispatch Bayern, I think we're going to have a very tough matchup against Barcelona. as a reward.
Yeah, no, agreed. I don't see a way that Dortmund beats them over two legs. Barcelona's just been too good this year, as much as I hate to say it as well, because I'm also not a big fan of Barcelona and their holier than thou attitude, but they've been pretty sick this year, you can't lie. They're actually a really good team. So if we can make it through against Bayern, which again is by no means a formality, I think that Barcelona will probably be the team waiting on the other side for us. And listen, man, if we can beat Bayern, I say it's up for anybody. So we'll see if we can get there.
That's right. Job isn't done. Heck, we still have to worry about Kyrie this weekend. Let me tell you, we're going to be rolling out our Naltovic and Krea starting striker combination probably, so won't be able to sleep easy. But we'll be back this weekend. We'll recap the Kyrie match for you all. We'll preview the second leg at Giuseppe Meazza against Bayern. Sterling, thanks as always for joining. Always a pleasure having you on.
Pleasure to be here.
Irfan, I'll let you take us away.
Awesome. Forza Inter.
Have fun in Brazil, Miko. Talk to you all later.